Welcome, everyone, to Blogging the Boys mock draft season for 2023. I am your host, Brandon Loree, who you can follow on Twitter at Brandon is Right. For our next episode in the BTB mock draft series, I am ecstatic to have my mailbag buddy, Mike Poland, on with me, who you can follow on Twitter at KenFigCowboy with a K.
Yes.
And can also tune into his show UK Cowboys, which is live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Since it's in Dallas, so that's what we're hoping to do. We're hoping to hit the Dallas guys. Mike, thank you for joining me, even with the time difference. But that just shows your genuine dedication not only to the Cowboys but to the draft. So I admire you for doing this.
Yeah, and you, and my dedication to you, mate.
And you know what? Like I mentioned, we are mailbag buddies. We do have our weekly mailbag that goes up, and I like the questions. Honestly, I really do enjoy the perspective that a lot of the international listeners have on the Cowboys, because it really does make me think about sometimes if it's either just a question that I think I know the answer to already, but I have to break it down in further detail. But they very, very intelligent fans overseas.
Yeah, and in America, they come from everywhere. We've had some from Germany as well. We've had some this week, and like you say, Cowboys fans are smart fans.
Yeah,
but they must be, because they chose the Cowboys to begin with.
Exactly, right? Yeah, we can't knock them for that. So, like I mentioned, this is Mike Poland's mock draft. We did one with David Howman last week, and I know he got a lot of grief for the selections he made, but have no fear, because this doesn't really matter about what the Cowboys want. We want our writers to address how they feel the Cowboys should draft. So if that means that they take a player in the first round that they feel is fit and can improve this team, then that's all up to them. And it creates a new conversation about players that you might not necessarily know about. So the rules, I'll go over them again. We have no trades. This way it keeps it nice and clean for the listeners and for us on our end as well, and to have fun. So I think where we'll start again, as always, is just the top three positions of need. So for the Cowboys, Mike, where do you think are the most pressing areas of concern for them on their roster?
And I'll do them in order. For me, and not necessarily in order in what they should take, but in order of need. For me, is inside defensive line, inside offensive line, and I know this might be a little bit controversial because we got Stephon Gilmore, but still cornerback in that order. So defensive tackle, offensive guard, cornerback, only because basically, what's your options beyond this year when it comes to cornerback? Stephon Gilmore moves. What are you doing with Trayvon Diggs? And if you don't draft a cornerback, like Trayvon Diggs can monopolize the trade, not trade, but contract conversations. If you don't have a cornerback resting there, sitting there, that you can feel confident, so that if Diggs can sit there and just go, give me more, I see myself as a cornerback one, which you could argue he is. I want cornerback one money. What are you going to do if I'm not? Whereas if you draft a cornerback this year quite early, you've just got that safety blanket there if should all go wrong.
It's definitely a great point, and one where, I mean, the Cowboys, you talked about three positions where it's interior offensive line, defensive line, cornerback. They addressed all of them in free agency, bringing back Jonathan Hankins, Chuma Adoga, like you said, Stephon Gilmore. So it sets up to where if the Cowboys want to take something that they already have depth at, it could be wide receiver, it could be corner. I don't think that you can have any problems with wherever they go, because like you mentioned, the guys who they brought in are not necessarily on long-term deals. Really, the only one that's long-term is someone like a Donovan Wilson, who they have, and that's even a 3-year deal. So with that being said, what is your draft philosophy? I know you do have a lot of scouting reports that are put up on Blogging the Boys. You do a lot of information on Twitter as well for the prospects that come out. But for you as a scout, what you look for and what you're hoping to get out of this mock draft, what would that be?
The way I always, or what we've been taught before in the academy is, the way they put it is, day one is don't mess up. So I like that. And basically, don't try and get fancy. Don't try and get smart. Just take a surefire guy that's safe. That's your first round. And that's how I always philosophize day one. Day two is really the meat and potatoes of your draft. So you want to get that really definitely right. So that's for the team, and day three is for the scouts. But what I always try and say is my number one philosophy is open mind. So we've seen it in previous years. Micah Parsons fell into the Cowboys' lap in a trade down. Didn't have him in as a 30 visit, didn't really pay much attention. All of a sudden, he's there, have an open mind. Same with CD Lamb. A lot of people got a bit upset about the CD Lamb pick, only because, you know, nobody had, in terms of, you know, in the front office, had any thought towards CD Lamb falling that far. But so my number one philosophy, whenever you think about it, is have an open mind. Keep it there, because you never know what will fall down to you. And that's my number one philosophy.
I like it. And I also think that what you first said is don't mess up, you know, pick the right player. That should be on a t-shirt or on every wall of every GM in the NFL, because I think that's all, at the end of the day, that's what they're trying to do. And so we're not going to try and mess up with what we're going to be doing today. So with that said, we're going to get into our mock draft again. Always grateful for PFF and how they have things set up. This time around, we are going to do all 7 picks. I know we did, I believe, 5 with Howman, but we're going to do all 7 this way. Like we mentioned, at the back end of the draft, the ones where it gets to just drafting for traits, that's going to be super important for us. So let's see. Again, we're going to do it turbo round, no trades. So we're going to enter in, and we're going to just get going right now. All right, let's see. We are on the clock, and Brian Branch, I said this, I keep saying this over and over and over again. I really believe that the New York Giants are going to be a pain in the Cowboys' rear the entire draft, because they pick in front of them. And with every mock draft, I know they don't necessarily need safety, but it's something where you just look at it, and it's just, if it's a wide receiver that they pick beforehand, it might be someone that the Cowboys are looking at. So where do you want to start? I know we addressed offensive line, defensive line, cornerback as our positions of need, but is there any sort of position you want to take a look at first, as seeing who's available?
Well, ironically, when you look at straight away, you know, when you said, when we said what are the positions of need, and straight at the very top is Kalai Kansi. And I get the reasons for the sort of how people perceive him, because he's the small little defensive tackle from Pittsburgh, and we know that there's a Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famer right now at the Rams who's exactly what he is, and we're talking basically inside defensive lineman right there right now. I know he's small and he's an outlier, but I feel like the fact he's right there, I mean, if you go down a little bit more, who else is available there?
Michael Mayer, we have Forbes. We have
Forbes, same thing again. Mazzie Smith,
Torrance is there. DeJuan Jones, the big Bigfoot, as like people like to call him. Laporta, Avia rather, is still there. Avala, sorry.
Avala, yeah, I know. I've been saying it wrong until I've heard that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. I think slightly, because I know we're using PFF's, you know, rankings. It's not how I would rank them, that's for sure. I know people are all on for Osiris Torrance. The issue for me is he's a right guard. The Cowboys have a right guard. It's definitely a place we don't need. Although the Cowboys do find ways of drafting guys and managing to make them play out of position, but I am goes down slightly again, just so I can quickly look before I make my pick on Clay.
So one thing I was going to ask is, you know, the Cowboys have interest in someone like a Will McDonald. That's somebody that Dan Quinn went to go work out. And so let's just say, for instance, the debate would be between someone like a McDonald and a Kancey. And I know both of them have their flaws. Will McDonald seems like that he's better on the move rather than just being, you know, straight on the defensive line. Of course, Kancey has the tiny arms, and people are worried about just his overall size as being an outlier, like you mentioned. But I think in this entire draft, it's a draft full of outliers. So it's like you kind of have to keep that in the back of your mind, saying, you know, that this is no matter who you get in the first round, it's going to be an outlier type guy.
Because I know you're a big fan of Emmanuel Forbes. Again, another outlier player. But do you know what, right? Just so we can mix it up and we can talk about it. You just had him there. Let's go with a carbon copy of Jason Witten and take Michael Mayer first. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip it. Yeah. And he is very much, when you watch it, the Michael Mayer. For me, on my board, he's actually a top 10 pick, but right behind him is Kalai Kansi. So he's right there.
And so for the people who are, you know, nervous of picking a tight end in the first round. I know that there are people, even amongst our own staff, that, it's like tight end is not a priority when it comes to drafting in the first round because the positional value, just like running back, it's also a position group that runs deep. But what is somebody like a Michael Mayer, bring to the Cowboys and what they don't already have in a Ferguson and a Hendershot?
For me, right, and it's not a mark, it's not a knock against Ferguson against either of those, but both of them really, to me, I see them. They're still developing, as tight ends always do. The fruition period for tight end is quite far when you think about it. But like both of them, I see them as tight end twos. Both of them. They're both supporting tight ends.
Yeah.
What Ferguson needs is he just needs to put on a little bit more weight, be able to take on blocks a bit more, especially in the run game. Hendershot, he's your quick, rapid tight end who's gonna, break seam routes and catch that way. So both of them are in that respect more of that F type tight end. Whereas Meyer is a Y. He's a complete Y. He is Jason Witten. When you watch him at Notre Dame, he's Jason Witten, and you can't say that about the other two. They are lacking in, like Ferguson. When I've watched Wisconsin, the best way I described, and I think I mentioned it to you before, the best way I've described his type of blocking is just falling over slowly. It's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and it's something that can develop, you hope. But again, Ferguson is a 4th round pick. Hendershot is an undrafted free agent. If you can upgrade that position and have 3 quality tight ends, again, you also have Sean McCune on the roster as well. Mike McCarthy has talked about he wants to use 3 tight ends in his offense.
There you go.
That's something that he wants. And I think if you get somebody like a Michael Mayer, he's also great at run blocking. And it's sort of like he's a jack of all trades, master of none. He's not going to be the absolute best at one particular thing like pass catching, route running, or blocking like some of these other tight ends are, but he's solid and very good across the board at a little bit of everything. So let's see. We have people who went before the Cowboys in the 2nd round. We have Keon White, the edge out of Georgia Tech. He went to the Bears. BJ Ojulari went to the Seahawks. It seems like a run on defensive line. Keanu Benton went to the Detroit Lions. DJ Turner to Jacksonville. Cedric Tillman at 51 to the Miami Dolphins, and Steve Avaya. I still can't. I'm going to call him Steve CU, like TC. I'm going to call him Steve CU.
I like it. I like it.
He went to Pittsburgh at 49, so we lose the guard that a lot of people are kind of circling, especially the Cowboys. So you have right now at the top of the board for PFF, of course, Tanner McKee. Yeah, I know. Tank Dell, of course, wide receiver out of Houston. Tyree Stevenson.
He's at the top for me right now on my board. But yeah, go on, keep going. Sorry.
Garrett Williams, the cornerback. I know we took in our draft when we did a full 7-round mock draft on the roundtable the other night. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, Charbonnet is there. And that's an interesting name because I do think that where the Cowboys are picking, if they wanted to take a quote unquote 3rd round running back, they might have to take him a round early because
that is exactly what I was just thinking, mate.
Yeah. So what positions are you kind of leaning towards right now? Like I can even select a certain one on here.
So Dell is the top of my board, but I still think looking at what's falling there, what's available, I can let that go. Charbonnet is very much, I'm enjoying that idea because I know that they've got Ronald Jones, but I just think like
it's a 1-year deal.
It's a 1 year, and the amount of money they got invested in him, that if he doesn't make the final cut, it doesn't matter. Like what they've done is they've covered themselves for if, for instance, in this particular case, Zach Charbonnet doesn't fall to them. The only other place I wanted to look at is edge defenders of how they look. You see, Andre Carter would be nice, and Foskey. Andre Carter, obviously, the issue is he plays for Army. And not that Army is an issue, but obviously there's the rules that stipulate.
Yeah, you might be overseas, but Army over here it's sacred territory. No, I think it's a point where I've heard constantly about him, how his body hasn't developed. And it's the fact that he hasn't grown into his filled because they don't allow players to get past a certain weight because of the restrictions with the recruitment and everything like that in the Army. So I get, and he's still a raw prospect. I mean, if I trust anybody to develop a defensive end, it would be Dan Quinn. But of course, you don't know if he's going to be here past next season. So who's going to come in and develop him afterwards? The one place I want to take a look at is linebacker, just to see who's available. And
it's
I say
funny
that
you say that. I was thinking we're on the same page again, mate. Always on the same page.
And it's because I know the actual group doesn't run too deep. I know we were able to get Ivan Pace in the other draft later, I believe in the 4th round. But again, not
these are my
too
3rd round guys right there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to, let's see, running back. Of course, you have Charbonnet, you have A-Chain, Bigsby, McBride.
Wait a minute now. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a Texas A&M fan, and I'm not going to do that to him. My pick is Devon A-Chain. Sorry, done.
That's what you're going with?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Aggie all the way, gig 'em. So I love him. Electric player. Funnily enough, I was speaking with Tom Ryle yesterday, who's an Aggie fan as well. And look at that. Right. We know. So you know where this one's going as well. But he's just Devon A-Chain. He's not without his warts, but he's an electric player. And I think in West Coast offense, you imagine like like 20 man personnel, or whichever way you want to do it. But let's say you've got 2 running backs on the field and you've got A-Chain and Pollard out there. Because bear in mind, Pollard played wide receiver in college, quite a lot of. You imagine the adjustments, the movements, and different places you can arrange these guys then to do it. A-Chain obviously needs to work a little bit on his route tree, but man, what to have that player would be dynamite.
Now, I guess the one question that people might ask is if Pollard doesn't sign a long-term deal with the Cowboys and he's not here past this season, is he somebody that can take over the lead back duties, or are they going to have to look to the draft next season as well to get a big guy?
Yeah, that would be the difference between the Charbonnet and the A-Chain pick. Is A-Chain is better at what you could do with already an established bell cow running back this year. But Charbonnet covers you for if Pollard walks next year, you can kind of feel a little bit comfortable in playing Charbonnet as your running back one. A-Chain for me, still, he needs to work on his blocking, which is a big part. But on the other hand of that is in order to make A-Chain a more established blocker, you need to put weight on. And if you put weight on, you take away what makes him special, which is his speed. You make him heavy, he's going to slow down. So I think the way I perceive what A-Chain will always be is always one of those high-end change of pace running backs. You're always going to see, he's going to be that splash guy, but he's never a guy you want to have a high number of snaps.
It reminds me a little bit like a Felix Jones, not in the same sense,
it is.
But in a way where when the Cowboys drafted him, it's sort of like his build, his body, like he was great as a rookie, but then they asked him to put on a few more pounds to be that lead guy, and he just lost all of his explosion. He wasn't the same player. And people were wondering why he didn't look the same, but injuries also caught up to him as well. But again, if you're drafting in the 2nd round, we've seen the way that the Cowboys have taken 2nd round players and haven't really panned out. So if you're getting a guy who's only with the team for 4 years with the contract for a running back, I think that's okay. That's something that
definitely.
So let's see. So Tank Dell, of course, is a blinking red light for you, I'm assuming.
Straight away.
I want to see other wide receivers. Of course, you have Dell, you have Michael Wilson, Tyler Scott, Jaden Reed, Trey Palmer. Looking at who went before the Cowboys, A.T. Perry, of course. We talked about him very early on in our sort of draft mailbag. Tucker Kraft, the tight end, of course, we already took one, but that's somebody that the Cowboys like. Sika Aika, the interior defensive lineman. Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that take before, but is it just because he's just a big guy and that's it? Almost like a Dontari Poe?
So I just bring up my notes on him, and like he could be very, very good, right? He's got what could be all the becomings of a good nose tackle. Athletic, big guy. You look at everything though when you look at all the drills. And he's like literally in the bottom 10% of everything. And I know the size is a thing. The drills, like, okay, you can argue and say, well, just watch the film. I agree. Yeah, film is far more important than the combine. I think for a first or a second
is
round
it
pick
because you want a little bit more explosion from the defensive tackle position, not so much just a big guy taking up space?
Yeah, like basically when you think of like that type of nose tackle he is, that unless you're giving me extra things for what you are, for a first or a second round pick, it just seems a bit rich for just having a guy who's only going to be on the field for certain situations, really, rather than a full like what would you rather? A guy who's on the field for 20 snaps a game, or I mean, we've just taken Devon A-Chain, who's gonna take all right, maybe less snaps, but he's gonna give you that explosive outlet on the offense that's gonna keep your offense rolling.
And the fact that you have when the Cowboys took Quinton Bohanna in the 5th round, that was something that was a little bit more palatable to what you're saying, where his toolbox isn't necessarily deep with regards to moves or anything like that. But when you're taking a player in the 5th round just to take up space and develop into sort of a space eater in the NFL, I think that's a little bit more palatable.
I tell you what he reminds me of is Danny Shelton.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and Danny Shelton is struggling to get on the field.
The one person I was trying to see if it was still available, and it looks like he went to Indianapolis, was Marvin Mims. That's somebody that the Cowboys have shown interest in. So Dell is, of course, the #1 receiver on the board. If we're looking at interior offensive line, like I said at the beginning, they did address with Chuma Edoga, but right now you have Chandler Zavala, Juice Scruggs, Voorhees, Mafi is still there, Bradford.
I'm holding on for Mafi because he was a visit as well.
Yes.
What's on the linebacker? I know Overshown. I've seen he's gone, but just what's on the linebacker front, and then we'll make the pick.
Okay. So linebacker, we have Dorian Williams, Ivan Pace, Troy Brown.
Try and hold it out because I want to take Dell for a number of reasons, but let's take Dell on this one because I know he plays the slot a lot, but he has played on the outside. And, people are going to say he's small, but his nickname is Tank, and it's for a reason. That he although he's small, he's compact and he's hard to bring down. So I think we've got 3 wide receivers, but beyond that, where are we going? Like, I know we've got guys who are developing and guys with question marks, but let's take Dell. Covers ourselves, especially for the West Coast offense, where we need a lot of wide receivers. When you look at the pass, and it fits quite nicely with what Mike McCarthy likes to do with his receivers.
Now, the one pushback I was going to say, and I think you were thinking the same thing, is with linebacker. Yeah. So you're hoping that somebody falls to you like Ivan Pace. Yeah, because I was going to say the drop-off between Dorian Williams and Ivan Pace might not be huge, but if you lose Ivan Pace to the next guy, and like that drop-off, I think is pretty big. So let's take a look and see where we're at linebacker, just straight to the linebacker.
Yeah. See, we talk too much that we're always on the same page.
Oh, okay.
There we go. There we go. He's landed to us. And I would prefer to take Ivan Pace over Dorian Williams.
Really?
Yeah. I like the measurables with Ivan Pace. I like I'll go down to my board and get Ivan Pace up. I've got my own board and everything. It's very sad. I do live a sad life. I need to get out more. I know.
No, but listen, this is just one piece of the year. You have the 3 quarters. This is only a quarter of your year dedicated to the draft.
I like the pass rushing ability and options that he gives to you. And I'm thinking of the Dan Quinn system. And we're thinking last year, Cowboys are first in pressures. They're high up in sacks. What is going to happen beyond the guys who are on 1-year deals this year that are going to be moving on? Let's solidify the development of a guy. Give Micah Parsons the help he needs, because towards the end of the season, he was gassed. So let's help him out. Let's get straight onto Ivan Pace, and then we can. Honestly, I really like a lot, and he, they've had a good viewing of him. They've had him in.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what's left for the inside offensive lineman.
Okay, so let's go straight there, and then we'll recap and see who is been taken. We have Jacorian Bennett, the cornerback from Maryland, the other cornerback from Maryland that people really like, a very traitsy type player. Sean Tucker, the running back from Syracuse, he went to the Giants. Tyler Lacey, that's a guy who recently the Cowboys have shown interest in, the edge out of Oklahoma State. He left. Dorian Williams, the linebacker who we were talking about, he went to Minnesota. Seeing if there's any other guys on here. Jaron Hall, the quarterback who could have been from BYU, he's an intriguing option for a backup, but I think that just for the Cowboys, there's no reason to take a quarterback unless it's later than the 5th round. Let's see. Not too many. Oh, Chandler Zavala went to the Colts. That's a name that I just saw. Yeah, so that's okay. So let's see where we're at right now.
Jackson Kirkland is actually high up on my board. He's my offensive guard 7.
Now, Mafi is still there, and this is round 5. So I'll recap right now while you're kind of taking a look. We have Michael Mayer in round 1. We have Devon A-Chain in round 2. Wide receiver Tank Dell in round 3, and Ivan Pace, the linebacker from Cincinnati, in round 4. So
I'm filling my need. So Kirkland is higher on my board than Mafi, but Mafi has been in with the Cowboys. And he's been in on a visit, so they've taken a look at him. But I'm going to stick to me. I'm going to stick to my board, and I'm taking Jackson Kirkland.
So what's the difference between? Because I know with Mafi, the one knock on him is he's not as athletic. Like in pass protection, he's a scout.
Protection. Yeah,
he's like a concrete block, you know. Yeah. But when it comes to being on the move, he might need to, get his NFL body in development a little bit more. But is Kirkland a little bit more of an athletic offensive lineman?
He's more refined, for definite. So Kirkland's got quite a lot of experience under his belt to begin with. Mafi's played quite a lot of snap, but Kirkland there is a knock on him with the ankle injury. But you look, and I know it's the Pac-12, so before people get upset, but they're still good. They're still good. They're still Power 5. But, Kirkland's consistently been on the Pac-12 first team every year. And it's year after year after year. Mafi is just I like the weight. I do like the weight. I'll try and get what my comp on.
So for me, Mafi, I always looked at it, and I know he's not the exact same player. I think he showed a little bit more athleticism, but like Ron Leary, when I think of former Cowboys, just a big-bodied guy where Ron Leary wasn't necessarily the most athletic offensive lineman. He was more just as being a big guy in the middle, kind of clogging up space, double team, stuff like that. So Mafi reminds me of him, but I think Mafi can develop a little bit more than a Ronald Leary and doesn't have as many injuries as Leary did coming out of college.
And with Kirkland as well, he's got the ability, because he's done it, to play both guard and both guard and tackle. So, I mean, we've seen the guy we took in the first round do the exact same thing. So he gives them that bit of versatility that the Cowboys coaches like when it comes to taking offensive linemen.
So we're going with Kirkland here?
Oh, yeah. That's on my board. I don't think the Cowboys would do that, but on my board it would be.
Yeah, and you said the position flex. That's something that the Cowboys have talked about. Mike McCarthy has even, the whole speculation of moving Terrence Steele into the inside. It seems like that they want all of their offensive linemen to play multiple positions, especially with someone like a Tyron Smith, who may be the swing tackle for the season. They want him to play left, right, and just be a little bit more versatile. So we have... Man,
I'm looking defensive back, but luckily defensive backs are quite as already straight away. There's a lot of defensive backs there.
Okay, so let me go to corner and I'll click safety as well. This way we have both positions up here as well.
And I will just get my corners and safeties up on my board so I can. I'm staying true to my board, right?
I like it. That's important.
Say it with your chest, as they say.
You do all this work. You can't deviate from the work that you're doing. One player that I heard recently about, this was on the DallasCowboys.com draft show, Trey Dean, out of Florida. It seems like that he's a guy where the athletic traits are there. But just as a safety, it's sort of like he still has to put a lot of things together. But when you're looking in this, because right now we're in the 6th round. Again,
exactly.
It's traits at this point. You hope that you can get a Donovan Wilson or an Xavier Woods, these guys who develop into like great players, even a Israel Mukwamu, who's kind of developing late, just something to find where you can kind of fill the special teams role. Because again, you don't know what's going to happen with a Kelvin Joseph if he's off the roster. You need to put these defenders, these defensive backs on the special teams unit. Otherwise, they're not going to have anybody.
Yeah. And I mean, Trey Dean, like for me, and you're looking at it, the weight and the height actually fits quite well in terms of so I've got him down as free safety / cornerback. So you talked about Israel Makamu, exact same situation where if the Cowboys want to try and force him into that safety role, they can, but he gives you an option at cornerback. He's got the ability that you can play him as a single high safety. He's got the speed and the tackling ability to go and do it. He does slip off tackles quite easy, is one of his issues, but he is quick. He's got the quick feet. Like you say, you could put him as on special teams to get down and get it. He's that very tough and scrappy type of guy, which is what was a lot of fun with him. Coming downhill as a tackler, coming into the box works as well. So I think he does need to work on his coverage skills. That is for sure. But when you think like what's already there and what you've got as well, to get a guy to just develop and then see what you've got from, like you say, Kelvin Joseph, Nashon Wright. If you don't feel confident enough in those guys, you can then fall back on your Trey Dean.
Now, Amarte Mapu, that's somebody that the Cowboys also met with. I don't know if it was meeting privately or if they brought him in for a 30 visit, but is that somebody as a safety that is a little bit higher on your board, that the value would be better to take him over Dean, or do you want to see another position? Because I know we almost scratched almost everything on our bingo card with regards to tight end, running back, wide receiver, linebacker, offensive guard. Really, the defensive back position is something we just haven't even taken yet. So we have 2 picks to do it if somebody falls. But is there anything else that you want to take a look at? Maybe edge?
I'm gonna use my edge because edge defenders, ironically, is a sneaky need for Dallas. But I'm gonna stick to defensive backs because you do need to cover yourself. In terms of my Mapu, he's actually on my post-it note right here on my to-do list.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Gotcha.
And there was a guy, was it the offensive lineman for Hawaii?
Yes.
That they've looked at. I need to take a look at. He's on my list too. So they a couple of guys, and like once it gets to about this stage, I kind of like what's left is left, and I'm sticking to it. But let's go with Trey Dean from Florida. And you've got to like an SEC defensive back. They've got a lot of work to do, and then we'll do the final pick, which I'm going to go with a very sneaky one if he hasn't been taken here, and is so because and there's a good reason for this. I don't know if it'll show you on here, but is the North Dakota State fullback still available?
He might be under running back. Yep, there he is.
There we go.
Hunter Lipke.
That's my pick.
Now, before that, just taking a look again, the Giants, big pain, Clayton Tune, he went to them, the pick right before the Cowboys, somebody that they've taken a look at. Jake Hayner, man, wow, the 7th round running back or quarterbacks, DTR, he went as well to the Seahawks. Stetson Bennett went to the Packers. Mo Ibrahim, somebody, if the Cowboys want to take a look at the running back later in the draft, he just went. Nashon Wright's brother, Rajon Wright, he went to the Saints. Jordan McFadden. So you want to go with a fullback in Hunter Lipke.
I'm going all in on the West Coast offense. I'm going all in here. And the one thing we're missing is now Connor McGovern's gone. Is a decent fullback.
Hey, and they've been using tight ends, offensive linemen. They haven't had a true fullback since Olawale, and even he, like build wise, wasn't really a fullback. The last one in my mind that was a true fullback was Tyler Klutz. And of course, his last name didn't really fit him too well. But this is somebody that, like you mentioned, Mike McCarthy comes from a Green Bay team that had John Kuhn as their fullback for years. And he was an important part of the offense, especially for Mike McCarthy. and you have somebody where hopefully he can develop into like a Kyle Juszczyk type role. I don't know if
That's
he's
what
a
I'm thinking.
similar athletically. Maybe he gets there, maybe at the pro level. And again, you're coming from North Dakota State, where they, for their conference, they are like the Alabama of everything that they do.
Oh
So
yeah,
even though it's considered a smaller school, they've been putting NFL players, coming out of college into the NFL for many years now. So it's not a knock on the school at all.
me and Kyle Youmans have had this chat where the people have to stop thinking of North Dakota State as an FCS school. You just have to. You have to see them as really as an extra group of five school. I mean, like, you think there's quarterbacks in the NFL that are from North Dakota State. There's plenty of defensive and offensive linemen that are out there that have been doing it. You just have to, and he gives you a lot of options, like you say. And I just think that you need to, if we're going for the West Coast offense, which is what I'm doing, I'm going all in on it. My last pick, if it wasn't, you could have probably taken a kicker here if you really wanted to. But I'm going with, let's solidify what we're going to do on the offense. We got the A-chain. Now we got Hunter Luepke. All right, we're all in on the West Coast offense here.
All right, so let's see how PFF graded you out here with your draft.
God.
So we have Michael Mayer, tight end, C+, Devon A-chain, C+, Tank Dell, A- for Ivan Pace. Okay, look, the back end of the draft, we're grading out pretty well. And then Luepke at the end, C+ to give an overall grade of a B+. I think that's pretty solid. And the one question I want to ask you, too, is, not PFF. How would you grade yourself? What grade would you give your draft?
Mate, you got to realize I'm coming in with full swagger, so I give myself an A++.
I like it. Is there anybody in particular that you thought wouldn't be available, and the place that we got him, especially for the Cowboys picking at the back end of every round, it was just too good to pass up? I know Ivan Pace is somebody that we took a look at as well. Yeah. Tank Dell, somebody too. Yeah. Anybody stick out as one of your favorite picks?
Mayer. Like, there's no way in reality he's making it to pick 26. Like, by the teens, he's gone. Definitely. Yeah. He's just too good of a talent.
Would you have him over Kincaid, or you have Kincaid over him?
No. On my board, Mayer. They're not that far apart. They're not touching though, but Kincaid is all right. Because I'm a big fan of Kincaid, and I know you are too, and I know Howman, who you had on, is a big fan too. The issue I got is something that's been noted is when you look at his stats against college defenses within the top 100 and out, and all the games where he has big games, big averages, touchdowns, are all defenses outside of the top 100. Within the inside of the top 100, gets a little bit weaker, a little bit thinner. So it's not, because obviously you need context to go with all of that, because it could just have been scheme, could have been a number of things. But it was just something I noted. So I was just like, I need to take a look to find out the reasons why that is, why Utah struggled, or Kincaid struggled in those instances. But yeah, I mean, my top four tight ends is Mayer in order: Mayer, Kincaid, Washington, Musgrave.
Yeah, I like it. And this is why you are truly the absolute best. You're great at your job. You spend your late hours in the UK in a tiny closet combing through film, doing all this stuff. And we truly appreciate it. And you're a valued asset, not only to Blogging the Boys, but also our mailbag that we do as well. So for Mike, where can people find you on Twitter? Again, one more time. I know it's on the screen, but for anybody who can't read, what would it be?
It's at Kenfig Cowboy. Kenfig with a K. Cowboy with a K. And on UK Cowboys as well, where you have been as well, mate.
Yes,
a lot of fun.
I'm now an alumni of the show, and you guys have done this for a very long time. When I saw the episode count, I was truly shocked, but in a good way. I give you guys a lot of credit for keeping it up, because the years when it's been not so good, those are the days you don't want to do a show, and you power through.
The worst ones is when you stay up for like Monday Night Football. So here in the UK, that finishes like 4 or 5 in the morning. Then you got to do a post-game show, and it's worse if the Cowboys lose on those games. It's just like, I really don't want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, you set them up perfectly so that they won't lose a lot of games this season, and we appreciate everything you do. Again, thank everybody for joining another Blogging the Boys 2023 mock draft. Be sure to read all of our work at Blogging the Boys on our website and rate and review all of the podcasts on the Blogging the Boys network. For Mike Poland, I am Brandon Loree, and as always, go Cowboys.